Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something many people quietly struggle with: the opinions of others. What people think about us, how they see us, how they judge us. These thoughts often follow us through everyday life. Sometimes we notice them clearly. Sometimes they appear quietly in the background of our mind. Imagine a simple situation. You want to say something during a conversation. An idea appears in your mind, but before speaking, another thought arrives. What will they think if I say this? So you stay quiet. Or imagine you want to try something new, a new hobby, a new project, a new direction in life. But the mind begins asking questions. What if people laugh? What if they think this is strange? What if I fail in front of others? The idea slowly loses its courage, and the plan quietly disappears. Many people live this way without realizing it. They shape their choices around invisible audiences, people they imagine watching them, people they imagine judging them. Sometimes these people are real: friends, co-workers, family members. Sometimes the audience exists only inside the mind, an imagined group of observers. Yet their influence feels powerful. A simple decision becomes complicated, not because the choice is difficult, but because we begin thinking about how others might react. This habit often begins early in life. From childhood, people learn to notice the reactions of others. Approval brings comfort. Praise feels good. Criticism feels uncomfortable. So the mind slowly learns an important lesson. Being accepted feels safe. Being judged feels dangerous. Over time, this lesson becomes deeply rooted. We begin adjusting our behavior to avoid negative reactions, to avoid embarrassment, to avoid rejection. But something interesting happens when this habit becomes too strong. The opinions of others slowly become louder than our own voice. A small choice becomes influenced by imagined judgments. What to wear, what to say, what to try, even what dreams feel possible. Many people begin living inside invisible boundaries. Boundaries created not by reality, but by fear of judgment. Yet the strange truth is this: most people are thinking about themselves far more than they are thinking about us. While we worry about how we appear, others are often worrying about how they appear. While we imagine their judgments, they are often busy with their own concerns. Understanding this can feel surprising, but it reveals something important about human nature. The audience we fear is often much quieter than we imagine. And once we begin to see this clearly, an important question appears. How much of our life has been shaped by opinions that may not even exist? This question is where the story truly begins. To understand why we care so much about what people think, we need to look deeper into human nature. Humans are social beings. For thousands of years, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being accepted meant safety. Being rejected could mean danger. Long ago, living alone was not easy. People depended on each other for protection, food, and support. Because of this, the human brain developed a strong sensitivity to social approval. The brain learned to pay attention to the reactions of others. A smile meant acceptance. A frown meant warning. Approval felt safe. Rejection felt painful. Even today, the brain still carries this ancient system. When we feel judged, the brain reacts strongly. Sometimes the reaction feels almost physical. A tight feeling in the chest, a sudden wave of embarrassment, a desire to hide or stay quiet. But the world we live in today is very different from the past. A disagreement does not threaten survival. A strange idea does not remove us from society, yet the brain still reacts as if social judgment is dangerous. This is why many people hesitate before expressing themselves. They imagine negative reactions. They imagine criticism. And these imagined reactions become powerful enough to change behavior. Social media has made this feeling even stronger. Today, people constantly see the opinions of others. Likes, comments, views. Approval appears as numbers on a screen, and the brain quickly learns to associate those numbers with value. When approval is high, people feel encouraged. When approval is low, people feel uncertain. Over time, this creates a habit of seeking validation. Before sharing an idea, the mind begins asking questions. Will people like this? Will this be accepted? Will others approve? Instead of asking what we truly think, we begin asking what others might think, and slowly the center of decision-making moves outward. Our actions begin responding to imagined reactions instead of personal values. Another reason people care deeply about opinions is comparison. It is natural for the human mind to compare. We compare achievements. We compare appearances. We compare lifestyles. And when comparison becomes constant, it creates pressure. The pressure to appear successful. The pressure to appear confident. The pressure to appear perfect. But perfection is an illusion. Every life contains uncertainty. Every person carries hidden struggles. The difference is that people rarely show those struggles openly. We often see only the polished version of others. The successful moments, the confident smiles, the achievements, but rarely the doubts behind them. This creates a distorted picture of reality. And when we compare our real lives to someone else's highlights, we often feel inadequate. Another hidden reason people care about opinions is the desire for approval. Approval feels rewarding. When someone praises us, the brain releases a small burst of pleasure. This reaction is connected to the brain's reward system, the same system that responds to many positive experiences. Because of this, approval can become addictive. The mind begins seeking it more often, trying to gain more positive reactions, avoiding situations that might bring criticism. Over time, this habit can quietly limit freedom. Instead of asking, "What do I truly want to do?" people begin asking, "What will others think if I do this?" This question can shape many decisions. Career choices, creative expression, personal goals, even everyday behavior. The fear of judgment slowly becomes a powerful guide. But understanding these patterns reveals something important. Much of the pressure we feel does not come from reality. It comes from interpretation, from imagined reactions, from stories the mind creates about how others might judge us. And once we begin to recognize these patterns, we can start questioning them. We can begin asking a different question. Whose life are we really trying to live? That question leads us to the next part of the story. There is another moment in life where many people first become aware of judgment. Childhood. Imagine a classroom. A student raises their hand with excitement. They want to answer a question. They want to participate. But the answer is wrong. Some students laugh. The teacher corrects them quickly. The moment passes in a few seconds, but the mind remembers. From that moment, the brain quietly learns something. Being wrong in front of others feels uncomfortable. Embarrassment leaves a strong impression. So the mind creates a simple rule. Be careful. Avoid mistakes in public. Avoid standing out too much. Avoid attention that may lead to criticism. These small experiences slowly shape how people behave. Years later, the classroom is gone, but the lesson remains. Another interesting psychological pattern also appears in everyday life. Psychologists sometimes call it the spotlight effect. This is the feeling that everyone is watching us, that every small mistake is noticed, that every awkward moment becomes unforgettable. But the truth is often very different. Most people are not watching us nearly as closely as we imagine. While we are worrying about how we appear, other people are often thinking about their own lives, their own concerns, their own worries. Imagine walking into a room and feeling that everyone is observing you. Your clothes, your posture, your behavior. But at the same time, someone else in that same room might be thinking, "Do I look nervous? Did I say something strange?" Everyone is quietly focused on themselves. The spotlight we imagine shining on us is often much dimmer than we think. Social media has also changed the way people experience judgment. Every day, people see carefully selected images of other lives, perfect photos, beautiful vacations, successful moments, confident smiles. But social media rarely shows the ordinary parts of life. The doubts, the mistakes, the quiet struggles. When we compare our real lives to someone else's highlights, the mind begins creating unfair comparisons. It begins to believe everyone else is doing better, more successful, more confident, more admired. But this image is incomplete. Every person carries hidden uncertainty. Every life contains challenges that remain invisible to others. Another hidden effect of caring too much about opinions is that it slowly changes how people make decisions. Instead of asking what feels meaningful, people begin asking what will look acceptable, what will receive approval, what will avoid criticism. Over time, this creates a quiet distance between our real desires and our visible actions. People may choose safer paths, safer words, safer dreams, not because those choices are truly meaningful, but because they feel socially comfortable. But living entirely according to other people's expectations can quietly limit personal growth. Many great ideas once seemed unusual. Many creative people were once criticized. Writers, artists, inventors. Their ideas often appeared strange in the beginning. But if they had stopped because of opinions, their work might never have existed. History is full of examples where courage appeared before acceptance. Understanding this reveals something important. Opinions change. Public reactions change. But the life we build through our choices remains our own responsibility. And when we begin to see this clearly, another important realization begins to grow. The opinions that once felt so powerful may not need to control our choices anymore. That realization leads us toward the final part of the story. At this point, another important question appears. If caring about opinions is so deeply rooted in human nature, how can we begin to live more freely? The first step is surprisingly simple: awareness. Many people care about opinions without even noticing it. The reaction happens automatically. A comment appears, a reaction appears, and the mind immediately begins interpreting it. But when we begin to notice this pattern, something changes. We begin to see the moment when the mind asks the question, "What will people think?" And once we notice that moment, we can pause, just for a second, and ask a different question. What do I actually think? This small shift can be powerful because it brings the center of decision-making back to ourselves. Instead of reacting to imagined judgments, we begin listening to our own values. Another helpful realization is understanding how temporary opinions can be. People's reactions change quickly. What feels important today may be forgotten tomorrow. Think about how many small moments once felt embarrassing. A mistake during a conversation, a moment of awkwardness, something we worried about for hours. Yet most of those moments disappeared from everyone else's memory very quickly. While we were replaying the moment in our minds, others had already moved on with their day. This realization can feel liberating because it reminds us that the judgments we fear often have a very short life. Another step toward freedom is learning to accept imperfection. No life can be lived without mistakes. Every person says something awkward at times. Every person makes decisions that later appear imperfect. Imperfection is not a failure of character. It is a natural part of growth. When people stop expecting perfection from themselves, they become more willing to express who they truly are. Another helpful perspective comes from remembering something about human attention. People are usually far more focused on their own lives than on ours. Their own goals, their own worries, their own problems. Even when someone briefly notices what we do, their attention quickly returns to their own concerns. This means the invisible audience we imagine often exists mainly in our minds. Understanding this can feel surprisingly peaceful because it allows us to release some of the pressure we carry. Another powerful shift happens when people begin focusing on meaning instead of approval. When the goal is approval, decisions become limited. The mind constantly calculates how actions will appear. But when the goal is meaning, the question becomes different. Does this matter to me? Does this reflect who I want to become? Meaning gives direction that is stronger than temporary opinions. Many people who have lived meaningful lives share something in common. They accepted that criticism would appear. They accepted that not everyone would understand their choices. But they continued anyway, not because they ignored all feedback, but because they understood that living authentically matters more than universal approval. Another important step is practicing small acts of courage, speaking honestly in a conversation, trying something new, expressing an idea that feels different. These moments may feel uncomfortable at first, but each experience teaches the mind something valuable. The world does not collapse when we are imperfect. People do not watch us as closely as we imagined, and slowly the fear begins to fade. Freedom grows gradually, not in one dramatic moment, but through many small choices. Choosing authenticity instead of approval, choosing curiosity instead of fear, choosing expression instead of silence. Over time, these choices build confidence, and confidence changes the relationship we have with opinions. We begin to see them as information instead of commands. Some opinions may contain useful feedback. Others may simply reflect another person's perspective. But neither one needs to control the direction of our lives. The more clearly we understand this, the lighter life begins to feel, because the weight of constant judgment slowly disappears. And in that space, something new becomes possible, a life guided more by intention than by fear. Thank you for listening today. If this story helped you reflect on your own relationship with other people's opinions, carry that awareness with you into your next decision. Because sometimes the most important freedom is the freedom to live as yourself. See you in the next story.